Think of a work of art from any medium that you love. A piece you'll always remember. Now ask yourself, why is it that whatever popped into your head popped into your head? What makes it unique? Why does it give you this emotional reaction? To dissect these emotions we receive is relatively pointless. All that matters is the feeling you get. Whether it be when you first consume the art or think about it later, the feeling is what sticks with you. And when it comes to the world of film, no one has stricken such a resounding chord quite as consistently as Stanley Kubrick. His films always provoke some kind of feeling. Kubrick's perplexing, unique, and fascinating approach to storytelling is revered. Today, I'm going to be looking at his legacy and just how impactful his work has become to modern artists. Born in 1928 and raised in the Bronx, Kubrick was just a face in the crowd for a good portion of his life. Sure, he experimented with different hobbies like jazz band and baseball, but he didn't really find his footing until the 50s, where he started making films. His early work was fairly amateur, with a few cult movies here and there, a good amount fell into obscurity. But then the 60s came, and it was bam, 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 bam!
Masterpiece.
All of these films offered something completely different to the audience, but still had a signature style that screamed Kubrick. His films usually have some sort of satirical subtext that analyzes part of our humanity and culture.
This sort of thing is always rather grim. But this one had a kind of splendor to it, don't you think?
I have never seen an affair of this sort handled any better.
The men died wonderfully. There's always that chance that one of them will do something that will leave everyone with a bad taste. This time you couldn't ask for better.
He tackled very challenging ideas and intimidating questions in his films, then proceeded to answer these questions in a seemingly perfect way. To put simply, he was a master of scope. Kubrick was always less concerned with giving you a specific takeaway from his films, but would rather utilize every aspect of the filmmaking craft to tap into more of a subconscious part of the viewer through striking imagery, instead of telling them how to feel. And when he did handle a pretty straightforward narrative, its moral identity of the story and characters were always ambiguous enough to at least ponder over and talk about. A prime example of this mindset would be found in Private Joker. Throughout Full Metal Jacket, Joker is eager and obsessed with killing in the war. He doesn't even really have much motive, he just has a bloodlust.
I wanted to see exotic Vietnam, the jewel of Southeast Asia. I wanted to meet interesting and stimulating people of an ancient culture and kill them. I wanted to be the first kid on my block to get a confirmed kill.
But when he actually gets on the battlefield and surveys the environment, he doesn't know if he really belongs there anymore. He's conflicted. He's not sure what to believe in. He literally has the words "Born to Kill" on his helmet alongside a peace sign, and he's not even sure what he means by that.
Born to kill, sir.
You write "Born to Kill" on your helmet and you wear a peace button. What's that supposed to be, some kind of sick joke?
No, sir.
What is it supposed to mean?
I don't know, sir.
You don't know very much, do you?
No, sir.
The point is, you're given enough of a moral quandary with just a single character to ponder over for years. Even though it's a straightforward story, these things are still ambiguous. Before Kubrick, no one really perfected this way of storytelling, to just throw everything at the wall at once and let your audience find what's important. But even then, that's a huge oversimplification. There was a clear motive and purpose in what he's doing, and you can always tell how much he thought through just about everything. Now, lots of different artists emphasize morally conflicted characters and prioritize this art house, feeling-based kind of mindset. Besides storytelling theory, let's take a look at some more things Kubrick practically revolutionized. Obviously, he's got his signature use of Steadicam, his consistently mind-boggling special effects work, and general mastery of framing and shot composition, all of which are still being utilized and looked upon as reference today. But I wanted to focus on some tropes that he legitimately pioneered, most notably including emotionally distant and to-themselves characters, the arrival of AI, the use of loud, overbearing, droning sound, black humor in film, and the use of classical music in modern art. In fact, he might as well have composed some of the most recognizable pieces of music out there, considering he gave them a whole new life, like the piece I just used in the intro. Even if you haven't seen the movie, I know for a fact that you've heard that song before. It's that culturally impactful. Considering his work has touched so many lives, I wanted to bring in some of his fans to say a few words, one being a film student, and the other being a theater teacher / director.
Considering you've seen hundreds of, movies and productions, do you still see traces of inspiration from Kubrick and modern playwrights and productions, just of any kind?
Oh, absolutely. The Coen brothers, Quentin Tarantino at all, you gotta, say that he came from Stanley Kubrick.
Like Interstellar, taking very great inspiration from 2001, and other films alike.
The wonderful thing about Kubrick himself was that he, for the most part, didn't take it from anybody else. He was all about, he had a vision, and he would adapt his technique to fit whatever he was creating, which sometimes meant he came up with brand new stuff that nobody had ever done before.
Most of his films are adaptations of novels and things like that, and yet they're still so unique, which to me is just baffling.
It is. A lot of the novels that they're based off of aren't really, the screenplays aren't really, they're not exactly adapted from them. The endings are either, switched around, or writing, or the characters are different, and I always found that quite fascinating.
Being true to the source material is only necessary in being true to its spirit, not necessarily to its. Kubrick's gift was not in necessarily telling a story, because the original story was good and was already there. His gift was telling a story through film.
Clockwork Orange is just a phenomenal film. That movie especially was really controversial just because of its graphic violence, but it personally never bothered me. I was just wondering, what do you have to say about that?
I think the more graphic and the more honest film is, the easier it is to connect with it, because it's real. It steps out from being just a movie, and it's real life, We're introduced to these devilish characters, and we watch their evil acts unfold for the entire film, and it's displayed in such an interesting and honest way that doesn't shy away from anything. It's just amazing.
There was nothing else like Clockwork Orange on film. There were always slasher films from the 50s and stuff, but they weren't good movies. Clockwork Orange was violent. Oh God, yes, it's violent. But it was violent for a purpose.
Exactly.
It was violent because that's the way this particular story is viewing the world, and specifically in that case, British teens at that time, without showing the violent element of that lifestyle.
I feel like to leave that out is kind of a disservice to...
I would, again, you're missing the point of the story. So, Kubrick was never afraid to, again, people say he's stoic. He was never afraid to reach into your heart and make you feel something. Right now, feel this.
Finally, do you have a favorite Kubrick movie? And do you remember when you first saw it? What was your experience with it?
Wow, a favorite Kubrick movie. I like them all.
Mine was also The Shining as a kid. I would watch it with my cousins, during spooky season, October, and it was always a good experience, sitting down and watching it and watching such a great film unfold.
My father, and there were 5 of us kids, and that's expensive to take 5 kids out for an evening, right? So my mom and dad, their favorite thing was to go to the drive-in, back when drive-ins were still a thing. The films always started with, the drive-ins always started with a cartoon for the kids. And then it would have some other little short, and then it would have a family kind of oriented movie, and then if there was something spicier, that would come late. By the time that second movie got there, about halfway through, my brothers and sisters are all falling asleep, but I don't fall asleep.
Yeah.
So I'm awake not only for that movie, but for the racy one later. So that was my first experience with Dr. Strangelove. And that, to this day, remains not only one of my favorite Kubrick films, but just one of my favorite films of all time.
It's interesting to hear different perspectives and stories based around the same thing, isn't it? We were lucky enough to speak to fans of Kubrick's work, but lots and lots of people aren't fond of him at all. But either way, I'm sure these people can at least understand that he's an important director. I'm sure these people can recognize his influence upon cinema. I'm sure these people had some sort of emotional reaction to his work. As I was saying, Kubrick hunts to provoke a feeling, good or bad. If the audience can interpret these feelings is a secondary matter. He didn't really care about how people felt about him. He just wanted to complete this film as expertly as he could, which he always did. And in the end, isn't that all that really matters?
Which, as it happens, reminds me of a conversation I had with Steven Spielberg about what was the most difficult and challenging thing about directing a film. And I believe Steven summed it up about as profoundly as you can. He thought the most difficult and challenging thing about directing a film was getting out of the car. I'm sure you all know the feeling. But at the same time, anyone who has ever been privileged to direct a film also knows that although it can be like trying to write War and Peace in a bumper car in an amusement park, when you finally get it right, there are not many joys in life that can equal the feeling.